Now, say my name.
The Rolling Bad Podcast.
You're goddamn right.
Coming to you almost live from the Temple of Hagnar in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, it's the Rolling Bad Podcast, episode number 134.
Ooh.
Yeah, it is September 28th, and I'm your host, Bill. Hey, I'm still wondering where the lady parts end and the snake parts start. Costello, and with me today,
all the way from the rejected clone skeins, it's Joshua. Wait, which clone number am I? Alt.
You are 420. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You're not on that side anymore. Okay.
360 no scope headshot, 420 get blades. I haven't played Counter-Strike in years, Bill.
See? Okay. All right. So, strange thing. It's Wednesday night and we're recording.
Yeah, I caught a bit of a cold over the weekend. It's been going around, and Bill didn't want to get infected. Don't know why. But so we had to delay it. But hey, you know, we're still bringing you that quality content where Bill gets to talk about lady and snake parts.
I bet you didn't see that one coming.
See it coming? Oh, man. It's been too long. We're a little punchy.
My snake game is weak. All right. Well, I mean,
That's an after dark comment, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the intro then. Huh?
Sure. Let's go back to the script. Okay. So today's show is going to be the first of the narrative event, basically guideline shows. In this show, we're going to talk about like 2 minutes on the size of your event and how that's going to affect what you're going to do. And then we're going to go into some ideas about the concept of your event. And that's where I think a lot of what we do in the future is going to be based on these different conceptual ideas.
Yes.
And when you've made these decisions, now you have a framework to do the rest.
Yep.
Also in the intro, I want to say the General's Handbook errata came out, and ding dong, the purple sun is dead. No, they made a really great change to the purple sun to rein it back in without destroying its utility.
Yeah. I really like the change. Everyone probably has, read the change, but it's in that nice bright magenta.
Yes.
Which states that the rule has been changed to subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target units within 6 inches of this endless spell. In addition, roll a dice for each unit within 1 inch of this endless spell after it has moved. On a one, that unit has been touched by the purple sun's rays. If the unit has a wounds characteristic of 9 or less, 1 model in that unit is slain. Otherwise, the unit suffers D6 plus 6 mortal wounds. And they up the price to 90s.
Yeah, so it is still a hero hunter, but by knocking that down, it's they did quite a lot to change it from the 3 inches to the 1 inch. So now when you're moving it around, you have to be very careful. And now, of course, your range to stay out of its nasty area has gone down to between 8 and 9 inches because it can only move 9. You know, you actually have ways to play around it now, whereas before it was 12 inches around the board with that pretty big base. It had a hell of a threat range.
Yeah, and there was definitely a lot of feels bad when it nukes your, giant monstrous hero character because they don't have a can't die in one turn thing. And I like that change a lot because, it touches Sons of Behemoth a little bit more now because their insta-kill thing would say, like, oh, no, it's just D6 mortals. Now you get D6 plus 6 mortal wounds if it triggers on them, and, well...
It's still going to wipe out any regular foot hero.
Yep.
But your big things, your Krondus, like you said, your Sons of Behemoth, yeah, okay. Ow, I don't like you anymore. That hurt.
That hurt a bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great change. It's hopefully going to make it so we don't see a bunch of COVID particles on the boards anymore. But, yeah. Yeah,
they made a few other interesting changes. This is just errata for the Pitch Battles Season 1. They cleaned up a lot of the wording for the scenario deployments, did some answering of questions about what are Galatian veterans, and just cleaned up a lot of different phrasing and what have you. It's a pretty nice little war scroll there. They upped some Skaven points. Okay, whatever. They upped some Hedonite of Slanesh points by a chunk here and there.
Yeah, why you keep effing with my bliss barbs?
I was going to say the bliss barbs, man. Right back to 140. Whew, it's a good thing that scourge was reined in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I don't know if it's now becoming a meme or a trope that the bliss barbs are, in that price range, but okay. Sure.
Yeah. It's bonkers. Kill Team Balanced Data Slate came out too.
Yes.
Fun little stuff in there, just little updates to a bunch of different kill teams. They also had the annual come out recently, and boy, those Killer Pox infected look good.
Oh, I know.
When you go into the dark, be afraid.
Yes. Yes. They will give you a reason to hate.
Yes, it will be a horror film, monster style. They're coming down the hallways for you.
Yep.
Bellies a screaming. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's out. And then, we're going to talk a little bit more in After Dark about this, but the League of Votann.
Broken OP. Yes. Banned all over Europe. Click this now. Okay. I'm sorry. Did I get the point across, though?
I wasn't clickbaity enough.
Okay. Leagues of Votann should be banned even in Garage Hammer game. They should be removed from store shelves.
Yes, exactly.
They're so bad.
Right? Do a full recall on them, just kind of like the squig that apparently kids were choking on.
Yeah.
Like, it's over.
Just like that.
Yeah. Choke on your dwarves.
Okay, you're going to hear a lot more about this in After Dark, but I am of two very distinct minds on this. And I told you this just a few minutes ago. I'm not smart enough to see what's wrong totally with that book. I can't get the combo that makes it over the top. I think more along the lines, and when this ban and the Spiky Bits clickbait headline first started about Germany banning the Leagues of Votann, it was 3 tournaments that were happening on the Saturday that they were being released.
Yeah.
Of course they were banned. No one had a chance to, they literally came out that morning and you're going to rock up that afternoon and play them. No. But then it started gaining a little bit momentum, and now there's more tournaments that are banning them outright. So it is taking a little bit of a life of its own. And honestly, they've been out for a week.
Not even.
Do we have enough game? Yeah. 3 days, 4 days. Do we have enough data to say that they are absolutely broken on the table?
Well, most people were using the spoiled codexes and leaked codex stuff on TTS and trying to have them work. And people are saying well, they have 100% win rate. I just don't think you know how to play them. But we could talk a lot more about that later. Yeah, it's like you said, taking on a life of its own. And I just don't think we have enough yet. And not even the entire model range isn't even out yet.
Yeah.
We're still working with just the bare bones that came out in the launch box, if you're able to get one or 3.
Josh.
And there's good stuff in there, but their strongest stuff hasn't even hit tables yet. That Land Fortress isn't out yet. And we'll talk more about it. I don't see the fix yet. And maybe we're both not as smart as all those pro gamers out there.
And like you said, what do you fix without breaking the flavor of the army?
Yeah.
The Tau was easy to rein in after that initial, oh my God. Okay, and then when they actually hit the table, people were like, well, actually, they're still just Tau.
Yeah.
And, then the Sisters of Battle came out, and oh my God, they're broken. They can do whatever they want with dice. They're blah, blah. Yeah, okay. And then in reality, they play like any other, like a faction you have to figure out how to beat or how to play. We'll get more into this later, but be aware there is a kerfuffle out there and more to come. And don't get sucked into the hype. Make sure you actually kind of know before you jump on that train and say, I'm not allowing them in my events.
Yep.
So that's all.
They look really good for Crusade, though. Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Oh, my gosh. They're so cool. I'm sorry. Yeah, off that.
Yeah, there will be a rant from both of us about how cool they are later.
Yeah. So New Dawn. There's a lot of New Dawn, which is really not a lot of New Dawn, but some New Dawn.
Yeah.
So up for pre-order, all the zinchiness you could possibly want.
Yep.
Books, dice, codexes. Yeah, Zinch, it's back. It's a thing.
Yeah. Be the change you want to see in the Mortal Realms, folks.
That's right. Be the change. I have always hated Zinch, and that comes from the early days when they just literally dominated the game. But it's always more fun when they're around and a factor because they're actually, to me, I really want to see that matchup Lumineth versus the Zinch because that's going to be just It's nothing but mag.
Yeah.
It's just, I think Vince said it best. It's just a mag dominated world right now. And those are the two factions that do it really good.
Real good.
So, and they've learned not to let their shenanigans affect everybody else. Archeon is already prefixed, so you don't have to worry about him just coming out and insta-killing everything you have.
Exactly. When I first started in the hobby, I first got Tzeentch because I just really liked the Lord of Change and how it looked.
Oh, God.
And all that. And then I was learning about this Skyfire meta that was going on at the time. We're just like, can you beat them? And everyone's like, no, not right now. They are just ridiculous. They always kind of spike when they come. They get their update and they just shoot through the roof and then they have to be worked back down. And I think that they generally will always work it back down to a really strong army, but not one that's OP.
Yeah. I don't think this version is going to be a table crasher when it hits. I think they're going to be really good and fun again.
Yep.
Because quite honestly, I don't think they're fun right now. I mean, they're appropriate and they're, if you really love them, they're enjoyable, but you're not going to pick them up just because you want a really cool, fun army to play.
Correct.
Maybe now you will. I hope so. Cause like I said, I hate Tzeentch, but I love to see it when they're good. So, also last week was a whole bunch of Space Marine made to orders. Yay. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. So you're going to get non-Primaris Space Marines okay. Anyway. And then, I don't know, some Blood Bowl sort of women in, I don't know. Okay. The Amazon team.
That comes up for pre-order this week, right?
I think.
Yeah, because it was just announced.
Yeah.
We're not doing our normal News at 11 thing.
Yeah.
But the Amazon Blood Bowl team, new sculpts, they're getting 3-star players.
Yeah.
They look gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. There's already a paint tutorial up on Warhammer TV where they're working with, more ethnic colored skin tones. And I'm here for it. I am here for it.
Yep.
I already paint my armies that way anyway.
It's something that I really need to work on because with painting the MCP characters, they're actually starting to understand now that not all superheroes are white. Just putting out the Nick Furies and all that stuff, it's been a challenge. I had to go back to some of my older books to find out how to do an actual skin tone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's awesome. I really like that they did that. The models look absolutely fantastic.
Oh, my gosh.
I remember when they did the made-to-order Amazon Blood Bowl team. It was 6-7 months back. And looking at those old figs.
It was those horrible stuff. This is the thing that might actually get me to play. I thought it was going to be when the Seraphon team came out, but then I was like, nah, it didn't really kick me over. I think the Amazons might.
Yeah.
They're so cool.
Yeah, really, really great models. Curse City coming back. We're getting the expansion, which is 3 of your vampire models that were already released for Soulblight Grey
3 models you don't get in the box. Did you see that meme I put up on the Discord? Yeah, it's like, yay, Curse City's coming back. It's going to cost $30 and it doesn't come with the models. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to cost, but I'm going to get it because Pam and I had fun playing that game.
It's a fun game. It's a really fun game.
It super is. And the growth path is so much fun. Mm-hmm. And then the enemies are challenging. I mean, I wholeheartedly recommend that game.
Yes.
I think this is great that we're getting an expansion for it. So you're going to be able to pick up the Warcry book separately from the big box.
Thank God.
Yeah. Ain't that the weirdest thing that took this long? But okay, whatever.
That box, I want the terrain. And I know the warbands are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Particularly the swamp looking guys. I really like them. Mm-hmm. I'm not too big a fan of the Horns of Hashut, but that terrain is amazing. And the core book, I'm I want it for the updates, but I'm not spending $200 some for that.
Exactly. Well, now you can spend $35, I think. For the book.
Hope.
Yep. So that's a good thing. For $30K Horus Heresy, we got the World Eaters and Space Puppies upgrade sets.
Woo!
Yeah, so if you're dogging on the World Eaters or the Space Wolves, your upgrade sets are coming.
Did you see what Bill did there? Dogging on them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got there, folks. Black Library. Got the Empire at War collection. Rogel Dorn drop. Demon Slayer in German.
Yes.
Yes. You really want to read Demon Slayer when you're not playing Leagues of Votann in Germany, it's time.
That's right.
And then the Warhammer Crime ebook week is coming up.
Yeah, that's this week, I think.
Yeah.
So if you're into the ebooks and the crime, this is your week.
If you're into crime, don't tell me we might have a problem.
Yeah, it's true.
Me being a prosecutor.
Yeah, don't leave a comment about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't tell us that you're downloading and pirating the book.
Yeah.
Because that's even worse. It's crime.
It's not my jurisdiction, but and then all the stuff we had talked about last time got released.
Yep.
Oh, would you look at that? It happened.
It did.
Yeah. Then pre-orders coming up. I mean, they're already talking about the Sons of Behemoth book coming out. All the big fans of the big stompy fatties
You
are
betcha.
just stoked, and I'm really excited too.
I am too. It's with that King Braun coming out, and I just, once again, I always say to throw that shout out to the Glimpspike Kits guys. Here's another faction that got 2 books before you. Okay. And then also the Warhammer Underworld Gnarlwood season has been announced.
Yeah, exciting.
Oh my God, I am over the moon for those Sons of Velmorn. They're Graveguard, on steroids and pumped to 11. Oh, they look so good. I didn't even know what the other faction is. I mean, there's some other people that they fight, but I just paid attention to the Graveguard. So, yeah, but a new season obviously means some of your cards go away. So,
Yes. They do have the rotating cards. It's important for that kind of a game because
it really is. It keeps it fresh. They do release the rival deck, so if you don't want to get into all that, what can I take and what can I not, just pick up the rival decks and you're golden.
Yeah.
So
yeah, easy.
Yeah. And they're cheap. I think the rival decks are like $20.
Yeah, just getting an entire card expansion in one set like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
Magic, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that does it for New Dawn.
It does. It really does. Like I said, we had a lot, but really not that much.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we go on to the creativity portion?
I've been a little creative recently, so I could talk about it.
All right. Why don't you?
Cool. So, I got super stoked on the Gellerpox again. I had them from the original box.
Yeah.
I had them all primed. I kind of did some washes on a couple of them and then just stopped. I don't know why. I guess I kind of felt maybe they weren't like terribly good at the time. I don't know. But they're coming back out. I pulled the models out and I was like, God, these are so cool.
Yeah.
Like they are straight horror show. I absolutely love it. So I dove in and painted 17 models.
Nice.
I did all of the standard 11 plus 6 of the bugs, 2 of each type. Since they're equipment now, I was like, let me just do 2 of each just to see if I'm definitely going to take more flies to stun, or I'm definitely going to take more, worms to explode mortals on people. But God, they were so fun to paint up. And I did a little fun joke where after I painted them all up, I realized, I painted one with the darker tone, skin tone. I was like, it's the freaking A-team right now.
Did you put chains on him?
I didn't go that far.
Oh.
But so they're so fun. I tried to paint each one with like sort of a unique personality and like different type. It's like the one that's like Cthulhu-y, like really looks like it was some sort of marsh monster.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Thriceborn looks like his own guy. The Screamer, I did like pink hair and like a bright blue outfit, belly screaming. It's just so fun. I thought they were amazing. And all that was after I finished painting my Chaos Legionnaires and the Centaurian for Warcry.
Warcry.
My inspiration there was Dark Souls.
Oh, man, those look so good. And I just wanted to steal that paint scheme. But gosh, dang.
Yeah, I kind of followed a little bit what's on the box and just improvised as I went. But it was definitely it needs to have like almost like fuzzy ethereal edge to it, which is what the Carrick Stone did for it.
Yeah.
Just sort of muted, and like some things are kind of shiny, but some things aren't. It was a really fun paint.
Yeah.
And then
great. Man.
Thank you. I built one of my boxes of Leagues of Votann, primed them all, so that was 25 models. Painted up the champion, the Einherjar champion already.
Tell us about how you ruined them.
Oh, okay. So I was
fired.
Like I wanted to, first off, I'm modeling all of them with either female heads or helmets because that's what I want. It's my all-female clone skein. If I do run Great Arthurian League instead of Uthar the Destined, I just call her Utha the Destined. And my paint scheme is pink, white, and gold.
Oh, boy.
Because at first I was going to actually do the Great Arthurian League, but I was like, well, what if I don't want to play them at some point? I want to try out a different sub. And I don't want to paint them necessarily like any one of the sub factions because, I'll go play a game and they're like, oh, cool, you're playing Great Arthurian. Like, no, it's Immer today. Sorry.
Yeah.
What? And I was like, no, it's my own, so I can just declare what it is at the time. Super stoked about that. But painted out the champion, named her Large Marge, the pink Cadillac.
The pink Cadillac. Oh, Lord. Oh, my God.
Complete with the hammer.
Oh, yes.
She looks sassy. She is throwing down. So I put a little bit of some base coating on Utha just to get her started, but I haven't really gone too much into that since I strained my forearms this weekend. Combination of building the models, working out, and doing chores. So it was just like my arms were like, nah, dude, just take a day off or 3.
Yeah.
And I did.
Good.
So that was my creation. What'd you do, Bill?
Let me see. For MCP, I painted up the rest of my shield. Just about everything is done for my shield roster now.
Cool.
I did She-Hulk as the red She-Hulk. So,
Okay.
Yeah. I just looked at that green and said, yeah, no, I don't want to do that again. So, yeah, she's She-Hulk red. That's fun. And then I decided that for my Warcry warband, I'm going to do Daughters of Cain.
Okay.
So I've been having this thing lately with daughters. Don't know why, but it's a thing, and it was happening. So I said, just run with it. If it's something you want to do, do it.
Yep.
I busted out all my daughters. Long story short, I had given all of my daughters to Elric because he wanted to build a daughters army. So he built most of it. And then, when he headed out, he brought all the daughters back. Most of the stuff was already built. I got to build a bunch of witch elves.
Okay.
Because I want to run witch elves rather than the other ones. The what's his
Sisters
name?
of Slaughter.
Yeah, Slaughter. I got to build the what's her name? Escape.
Gladiatrix. I can't
Thank you.
remember her name.
Gladiatrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just about everything else is done. I got to, of course, build and paint Marathi. So, because you got to have that. But first, I want to get the Warcry team done, and then see if I really, really want to do a whole army of them.
A whole army of mostly naked women. It's a bunch of skin tone. It's so much skin tone.
Skin tone, yes.
So much skin tone.
Yes. I was thinking about making them little sweaters. Give them ice bases and just give them little sweaters.
There you go. Sweaters and yoga pants.
Perfect.
Right.
New army, all green stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I just started looking around. I had 2 cauldrons, but I only have 1 now. I don't know what happened. Elric might have traded it for something or what have you. I don't know. But I'm looking to get another one to do a conversion on it because I saw a really cool one that I want to do. So I think I'm getting it. I should be getting it this week. But yeah, it's just a project. It's just for fun. So I really kind of want to get back into painting up the Stormcast for, the actual army I'm going to play a lot. So
You said daughters are just for fun?
yeah.
I don't know how you do that, man. I take my hobby too seriously. It's not fun for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh. No, they're just for, they'll just be for fun games.
Little S&G.
Yep. Because it actually ties into battle, what I did for battle this time. So should we just bump into battle? Are we done?
Sounds good to me. And you got a lot more battle than I did.
Not really. It's just we played one hell of a game. I brought my Night Haunt. Denny brought his Daughter's Cane.
Okay.
We set up the game. We deployed. And then we switched sides. So I was just sitting there running this Daughter's army going, okay, these are freaking awesome.
Right?
And, always playing against them, you're like, okay, it's they're really good, but they do have their downsides. They're the poster children for glass cannons.
Yes.
So
yes.
you get them into a fight and they're going to die. And the thing is the matchup with the Night Haunt is probably one of their worst.
Yes.
Because of, all the things the Night Haunt do to them, just makes it hard. Yeah. Okay. You can retreat and hard. No, you can't. No. And all that cool rend you've been adding with all your spells and what have you. Yeah. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't matter.
So it was really interesting to switch sides and then actually win with that side.
Yeah.
It was, I'm not going to lie, that game took a while.
Yeah.
Because we were both learning new armies, on the fly. But it was fun. It was a great game. Great game. And then, of course, we had League Night last Tuesday night for MCP. So we had this cool 4-player game. We did the, I can't remember, the Separation Anxiety.
Oh, yeah. That's a fun one.
Yeah, it's a great one for 4 players. And we actually we got there early, but then we waited around a while for Chad to show up, whose name is not Chad, but he's Chad. And so it was Anders and Alma and myself and Chad, and we played that 4-player. It was kind of fun. It was just a one-off, so that was good. It was fun. Anyway, you.
Well, I didn't battle with anything other than my own personal demons this week. I just didn't have time. Been way too busy at work. Things are changing up. Yeah, I'm going to be one of the murder attorneys now. So.
Oh, fun.
So I'm going to have the special murder phone every other week.
Jesus.
But my caseload will significantly drop, and I'll have like some throwaway cases, but it's gearing up to be one of the top attorneys in the office to really start prosecuting hard.
Nice.
So it'll be fun. It'll be time consuming. It'll be stressful, but I'd rather prosecute homicide than I would any type of a sex crime.
Yeah, I hear you.
I've prosecuted those cases so far, and they are hard.
Yep.
Like, not just in terms of the content and what you're dealing with, but actually, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, improving it beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that in After Dark.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get some more games in coming up, particularly with these Votan.
Oh, man.
When the 40K stuff starts picking up for a little league coming up.
Oh, I won't play against Votan.
They're banned in the store.
Yeah.
I need
GW store.
Yeah, I need to put together my Into the Dark box. Super quick, easy paint scheme I've got for it. I'm going to just 100% knock out that terrain probably in a day, but I'll probably tear up my forearms again with dry brushing so much. I'm excited for Into the Dark, particularly with Gellerpox. Like,
Yeah.
My body is ready, and I'm giving it to Nurgle.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's it for that.
Outstanding. All right, so we don't have to worry about the news at 11 because we covered that. So let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into our lore section.
Sounds great.
All right, so we are back after dinner. No, not after dark, after dinner. So we are here for the lore portion of this show, which happens to be part 1 of the narrative campaign development show.
Woohoo!
So, yeah, and I want to preface, and I will do this on every one of the shows that we do with this topic, 2 huge resources that you need to be aware of if you're trying to put together any kind of narrative event. There's 2 websites you need to be aware of. We Are the Neon, all one word, and it's We Are the Neon, NEON.com, is a repository of all things narrative. Anything you want to know about ongoing narratives, events that are coming up, if you want to see packs, if you want to see pictures, if you want to see rule sets, all that stuff, all homebrewed stuff, it's there. I can't recommend it highly enough. The other site, of course, is TCRepo, TCREPO.com. That is the basically repository for all things Games Workshop. It has, over time, become this just amazing resource of data and documentation and stuff that's out there in the wild.
Yep.
It could be packs that people have made up, going all the way back to Rogue Trader days, or it could be literally like when the new battle slates come out, he puts them up on the site so you have reasonably instant access to them. He does a hell of a lot of work, and it's a great site. Whatever you need, you can get there. So that's the resources. That's the 2 biggest resources that I can say will have an impact on every phase of building your event. So now let's move on to section 1, the size of your event.
That's what we're calling it now.
Sorry, I was getting a little after darky there.
Start out with the snakes and
Yeah, I know. And look at me go.
I mean, this part's really straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about how big is the event and kind of what's sort of the scope of it. So you have your standard garage hammer thing. I think you need at least 2 people to enjoy a narrative.
Yeah, I mean, and a 2-person, you could either do Crusade or Path to Glory, or you could just make up something completely on your own.
Exactly. Consider there's about 2 to 4 folks, right?
Yeah.
Just like a small group of friends who get together and maybe push forward through some narrative campaign stuff, just trying to play around, have some fun, right?
And you have the most control over that size of an event because quite literally you probably know all 4 people and you can sit in the living room after the game and go, here's what went right, here's what we need to change. Yeah, those tend to go the smoothest and the easiest.
Next one up would be the store size, which is usually about like 4 to 12 people. Something that, in my experience, is usually generally like over a course of weeks, maybe like a month-long event where, you have maybe not necessarily just pure friends, but, folks who come in out of the shop and maybe new people coming in, mixed experience levels. Everyone's got sort of like different goals and ideas in that, so it's still more contained and generally lasts a little bit longer, but usually has an end cap.
Yeah.
Then we move on to the regional size, which is going to be 12 to 30.
Yeah, and this is your LVO, your Nova, your Adepticon. These are your big events that are typically going to be done over the course of a few days.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different mindset going into those where you don't have like a week in between games to prepare, to morph, to interact with players on a one-on-one. These kind of events they're harder to put together, but you're also able to do things much more on the fly, extemporaneously, if you will. You can be a little loosey-goosey with the rules, and we'll get into that as we talk about concepts. But if you're running an event that size, you definitely want to reach out to the people that have done that before and find out what worked, what didn't, what traps to look for, what pitfalls, and really what kind of things can get in your way. You're going to have to get a lot of terrain. I mean, you're going to need tables.
Yeah.
So if the event isn't providing it for you, it's a big deal.
Yeah. It goes on to the massive size, which is about 20 to 40 folks.
Ooh.
Huge. I'm thinking, massive can even reach further than that when I think to the Grand Narrative event that's about to happen in Tamiyan here in November. Mm-hmm. Like, that's going to be insane. That's a lot of balls in the air. And that requires force. That requires so many bodies working on it.
Staff. Yeah. Now you're talking about having to have the resources to put something together, be it a weekend or even be it a long-term campaign, that's kind of probably almost going to have to be internet-based.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to put a lot of resources into it and a lot of time and effort, and you better be sure that you have your stuff tight. A lot of people means a lot of different ideas and a lot of different thoughts, and the potential for weirdness just comes way up.
Oh, yeah. Totally does. And this does sort of parlay into what you just kind of hinted at, Bill, is like the online interactive aspect of it.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about how you've done stuff like with the Legion stuff, but, Animosity does this.
Animosity, Coalescence.
All these folks just from around the world playing games, recording them, data's being taken in, and then other things are being sent out. So that's so much more of like a feedback response, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, here's what happened. Okay, I need to take that, interpret it, and then I put out the next thing, It's not being managed by staff in-house for a week straight. It's something that is definitely ongoing and requires, logging in and the time it takes to check in on what's the status of the narrative, what's the next step, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the battle report submission is a huge part of it because they let it blend the next. It's a week-by-week system, and literally what happened last week forges what happens this week.
Exactly.
So, those can be some of the most crazy fun. But again, this is a distributed campaign. This is being run. Alex does a great job of running this.
Yeah.
But he relies on the people at the local events, the local groups, to sort of get it fired up, get it moving, get people playing. And, it could be as simple as just two guys who normally play Garage Hammer decide, hey, we're going to jump in on this. Yep. One of our games per week is going to be this. Or, you can have a cheerleader at the stores going, hey, guys, let's play this. Let's do this and get 8, 10, 12 games going.
Yeah.
So you'll have people helping you without you even realizing it.
I really like sort of the recursive nature of it, right? So, like, if you're playing Garage Ham and you're like, God, I wish we could expand, we hop online to these, online interactions because maybe you don't necessarily have a store nearby that's running a campaign or even nearby. And so then you could actually be part of a greater community and a greater narrative and help you and others be able to develop that.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen stories on the Animosity Discord about a couple of guys decided they were going to get involved with this on the weekends. And all of a sudden they found out that in their city, there's a huge community that's also doing this. Yep. And they're like, we never even knew you guys existed.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden now the group has 2 more people and these guys have a circle of players, new blood.
So cool. So cool. That's kind of just, part 1.
Yeah.
Size.
I mean, literally everything, most of what you're going to do from the onset is figure out what size your event is going to be. You have to know that going in because you have to know what resources you have to provide as the guy who's going to run this, who's going to put it together.
And knowing the size, too, goes directly to the part 2 of the narrative series, which is concept. This is well, we're going to talk a lot more about this when we did size,
Oh,
but that's sort of just setting the stage, right? So you need to figure out what is the scope sort of, the number of players, that kind of thing that you're going to have, what resources you need to have, what's the concept you're getting into.
Yeah, and the huge thing here, the biggest thing that affects everything about the concept of your event, you have to always be answering the question, what is the hook going to be? Why are the players going to want to come back? Every decision you make, every choice that you decide has got to be guided not by the event you want to have, but it's what your players want to have.
Yep.
And you have to be willing, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but you have to be willing to kill your baby.
Yeah.
If you've made this amazing narrative with 30 pages of backstory and your players aren't into it, you're going to have a couple of games and it's going to fold.
Yep.
Make sure that you know what your hook is. Why are players going to come back for the next week or the next game or the next hour? You have to keep that in your head. What's the hook? How am I making this for the players?
Exactly. And there's some big questions that kind of flow from that. And then they do have there's a lot of feedback looping on this that you really need to look at what you've done and be like, okay, I think this is cool, but what do others think? Right. And so you need to really understand who your audience is, right? So for example, how experienced are your players they're going to be playing with? Can you even control that? Is this something where it's again, at the store level, it's just open to whoever signs up to 15 people.
Yeah.
And it's just, okay, well, this person's an experienced competitive player. This person literally bought their Stormcast last week. So can you really control that, right?
Yeah. I mean, on the Discord, I think it was Ulf that had that long message about how one player came in and actually ruined his campaign.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't control who was in it. And you have to keep that in mind. What is the experience level? What are they going to bring to the game?
Exactly. You also have to decide whether or not you're going to be directly playing in the campaign too. I think this is generally when you have the smaller events, your Garage Hammer, maybe store level, right? Where you're no, I want to run this campaign, but I want to play too.
Yeah.
I want to develop this narrative. I think it's fun. Are you going to be playing in it? Or frankly, is the size of the event too much for you to even be involved and you are strictly GMing it, which has a completely different mindset. Even your tabletop RPGs, dice and paper, right?
Yeah.
There are people who love being GM. They're the control freaks, right? They're the ones who want to know exactly what's going to happen next, and they want to toy with the players and all that. But then there are the players who would never ever want to do that.
No.
They just want to I'm running in with my Orc Barbarian and I've got this two-handed axe and I'm going to smash the thing.
Yes.
It's two different mindsets, right? So if you're getting on the bigger scale, you are drawing yourself further away from playing in the event, and you are more concerned with GMing the event, making sure that the games flow and move forward.
And the big thing is you have to really watch, if you're going to play in the campaign, you have to really watch what mechanics you're using in the game. You have to have some transparency when you're in it. There can't be a system where in between games you make decisions about how the next one's going to be set up, because people will look at that and go, well, you're pretty much in the tank for yourself now, aren't you?
Right.
So you have to be careful about, if you're in the campaign, be careful that all of your mechanics are completely transparent to everyone.
Correct. Certainly be it was just a fun little thing I did at the beginning where there can only be one endless spell, one of each endless spell in the entire campaign. Oh, I got Purple Sun. Ha ha ha. Right? Because you beeline for that when everyone's I just want to add more units to my army. And you're catch this purple ball of death.
Mm-hmm.
The transparency is very important if you're involved, if you're playing.
If you're in it.
If you're in it. And then you need to think about, for you GMs out there, how much control the players will have in the narrative.
Yes.
I think that players will have more control in the smaller sizes, right? Because that's when you are, as perhaps the organizer, right, in the game as well. And so it's much more player focused in terms of, well, we just want to make this our fun game as we go through the campaign, compared to as you start to get into bigger and bigger events, it needs to fall more into the GM's hands. The players should have, maybe some control. We'll talk more about that later, but certainly they're going to have less control the larger the event gets.
Yeah, and you kind of want to strike that balance of the players have to feel like their games and their decisions matter in the outcome, or, you know, in the process of the narrative. At the same time, you can have an overarching story that you're telling as long as they know that going in and know that there's a certain limited subset of outcomes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you advertise it as a completely narrative free-for-all, and then all of a sudden when game 2 rolls around, you're like, no, you can't add those units to your army because that doesn't fit into my story. Well, you're going to really tick some people off with that. So
Definitely.
As you play around, you have to kind of decide, are you going to write just the beginning of the story and let the players write the end? Or are you going to write the framework and force the players to go inside of it and yet still have enough agency to be involved and to basically find their hook that keeps them coming back? If you're literally scripting it like a D&D scenario, chances are it's not going to last very long.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, people
Not
don't
at
like
all.
to be told, this is what happened. Well, I actually won that. Yeah, no, this is what happened. But no, shut up.
Well,
Don't
yeah,
be
you
that
won, but Zinch,
Yeah.
that's going to be anytime you're GM changing things up.
Just put a
Well,
Lord of Change.
yeah. Well, you didn't know the Lord of Change was watching over the battle, and so, actually, this is what happens instead.
Yep, rewind the whole thing, and the other guy won.
You had to think too, like, and this is going into like how in depth you're going to be, that kind of stuff. How much effort can you actually put into this? And it's not just the mental load of trying to create this fun narrative environment, but like actual physical work, right?
Yes.
I mean, I've seen over the years, Bill, before I even got involved, in the podcast, when you were doing all the narrative stuff and you had just pictures of just mounds of terrain. You're like, God, I have to get this ready.
I know.
And that's something you have to consider. Do you have the terrain for it?
Yeah.
Right. So like, oh yeah, I know it's totally going to be like a Nordic adventure. I just got done playing Skyrim for the 35th time, and so I really want it to be like snowy mountain stuff, and all your terrain is desert.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're probably either going to need to buy a lot of like snow to put on them, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have to get new terrain. So you have
Yeah.
to think about that too. It's not just conceptualizing the narrative.
Yeah.
It is actualizing the narrative,
Yes.
right? So do I have the terrain to make my concept actual? If you don't, well, then you're going to have to account for that and the amount of effort that needs to be put in. Can you put some of that load on your players, right?
Oh, that's the best part.
And I think it's actually necessary at the smallest levels.
Yep.
Like, not everyone's going to have all the terrain. I mean, unless, you're Bill and you buy it all. But generally speaking, Garage Hammer level, like, some people are going to have some terrain here and there. Like, oh, no, cool, I bought this set, but it's only enough for like a quarter of a table.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, there you go. Well, we've got a quarter. Let's see what the other three of us can bring to the table.
Exactly. People can help you. It's amazing. Some of the people that have reached out to me for LVO, hey, I'm a graphic designer. Do you want me to work this logo up? Yes. And some other people that are like, hey, I've got all these resin printers. You want to work on some maybe awards and stuff like that? And I'm like, oh, hell yes.
Yes, please.
It's little things like that. Don't be afraid to canvas your players for resources that they might be very willing to provide because they want to be part of the narrative, and generally speaking, narrative players want to help and they want to help shape things, and don't be afraid to use their skills. Be ready to, I would say, compensate, but not in game, but maybe buy them dinner, buy them lunch, something. All right, so now you've kind of figured out your effort level. Now you kind of have to look at another big overarching question. Are you going to have it be a framework campaign or a playthrough campaign? The framework campaign is the animosity. It is the living world. It's the Nova Open, where it's a living world and there's all kinds of events that are going to feed into what's happening.
Yeah.
Every year we get to Nova and things have changed because they're also using this exact same world at their store campaigns, and it's evolving as time goes by. Whereas, like, if you go to LVO, my world stopped when LVO stopped, and it will pick up again when LVO picks up again. So that's not a framework. That's actually a playthrough. You're going to get there. Everything's going to be what you expect from reading the pack, and that's all you have to worry about. But you, as the narrative organizer, have to kind of think about, if you want to do a framework campaign, you have to make sure that you're going to have the impetus and the players and the base to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that can happen is you start something like this and it grinds to a halt.
Yep.
And that's such a bummer for you and everybody, and you start questioning your ability when chances are maybe it was just something else that caused the wheels to come off, but then you have to analyze it. So really the playthroughs are the easiest ones to do because you set it up, you script it, either open-ended or close-ended, and you let the players loose and you have a great time and you move on, and you probably never use that again. Or maybe you build it up. Who knows?
I like to think of the difference in terms of video game perspective. You have the linear progression game and you have the open world game.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Open world is framework, linear progression is playthrough.
Yep.
And so that should give you, if you're new to the concepts of these things and trying to work it out, right? Think of it like, do I want, well, I'm not going to say Elden Ring because there's like no direction in that game, but more of like a Breath of the Wild type of thing. Or are you looking for more of like an Ocarina of Time where it's like there's a like a play box, a sandbox that you can run around in, but ultimately it's I'm going here, then here, then here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how you look at it initially.
Sure.
And, kind of the framework plays into how long you want the campaign to run, right? Or if you want the narrative event to run, I should say. Because, I mean, for like the framework ones, it can kind of be shorter, right? That's you're like, we're playing over a series of days, right? Very quickly, pop, 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 right? But if you're having like a longer term thing, do you need to have it be more loose, right? Have less framework, I guess, more like kind of animosity style, right?
Yes.
Where it's, all right, we're getting like the feedback in, I take it, I interpret it, here's next week.
Yep.
Because of everything that's happened in the world.
Yes. Yes.
Here's how this next week is playing out, right? So,
and that can run ad infinitum.
Yep.
I mean, it can literally just keep going forever.
Yeah.
There does not have to be a stop.
Exactly. And that,
Until Alex just gets so freaking tired. He says, hell with it.
But there's also sort of like, I don't know if we call it a medium, but it's sort of like, I think you wrote down as seasons, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want to do like 4 seasons out of the year, like, all right, here, the first 3 months, we're in this one, right? Well, that story's either concluded, but now we're going to this perspective and we're running this season, right? There are ways for you to implement that. So if you kind of want the longer term game with all the consequences and all the things that you get out of that, but you also want to have players maybe with a shorter attention span, that you want to just do it in these little chunks, then that might be the way to do it. Yeah,
to me, that's what you can really do to kill a narrative campaign is make it too long.
Yep.
People have lives. They have new armies come out and they want to play those, and their time is limited anyway, and they have to make a choice.
Yep.
So, I always say, if you're doing a store, if you're doing a garage hammer, even a regional for a bunch of people, 4 to 6 weeks at the most.
Yeah.
Beyond that, and you're just asking for too much commitment. Now, like you said, you can do like a 4-week campaign that has a conclusion. And then that just feeds into next quarter's narrative campaign where you start at that point. And now all of a sudden you have this big, long playthrough campaign, but the amount of work you're having to do to get each chunk done is minimized.
Yeah. And then again, the concept is, do you want to, because you could take those breaks, right? Like it's 4 weeks, like let's say we do a month off, another month, right? And so you can cycle through and have 6 months out of the year in which you're running a narrative and have them tie in, because then, in terms of mental load and preparation stuff, let's say you want to have this long-term campaign, but you have to take time off sometimes, right?
Yep.
So, all right, I'll use this month to recoup and think about how the results of the previous, month are going to influence the following month. So there's ways for you to do the, I guess, short and the long.
Yeah.
Right? There are ways for you to just do long. There's ways for you to just do multi-day events. Like there's ways to make it happen, but that's all part of what you need to think about when you're trying to understand what's the scope of this event. Part of that too is setting, right?
Oh, this one is, oh boy.
I mean, it's any kind of narrative. Like you think about any type of creative writing or something like that. You're dealing with, armies or people, right? In places. And those places will shape or at least inform how certain things may unfold. I'm in a desert, right? The whole Oasis thing that you did.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily have the same concept if we're in the snowy mountains, of the north or in the tropical jungles. Those things don't apply the same way. if you're dealing with, more Mortal Realms concept, then you have to really think like, well, I understand that all Mortal Realms sort of have all these different types of environs, but like what's the flair of this one, right? Well, we're in, Chamon, right? And so there has to be a metallic flair to all these different things, the way the magic's influencing thing. It makes it so that type of setting will influence terrain. It'll influence where the story could go. If you're really following the lore, if you're one of those guys, but you're following the lore and you understand like, well, here's the lore in Chamon, right? It's not the same as Akshi. It's not the same as Ulgu or anything like that. They will interact in some ways because of the larger scope of the story that we read in all the text. But if we're focusing on just one place, it's only going to have a certain scope. You won't be able to really access certain other things. So you need to have that in mind. It could affect how you do your campaign.
The major breakdowns, you have to really think about as you're deciding on a setting is, first of all, is it going to be a map campaign, a non-map campaign, maybe a matrix campaign? There's all kinds of different ways you can do this. To me, the easiest ones are the map campaigns.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that because there's so many resources. Everything that GW does, whether you realize it or not, is a map campaign.
Yep.
And they have done 98% of the work for you.
Uh-huh.
All you have to do is change the names to protect the innocent or guilty. Quite literally, if you look back in time and you go back to that Firestorm box, which I initially hated, which I'm now a huge fan of.
Yep.
It was a brilliant set. It was the same thing with the Urban Conquest for 40K.
Yeah.
Just a brilliant set. And at its core, it's a map campaign. You might do... Even a map campaign can be kind of theater of the mind. If you're a very experienced DM, you can actually paint a picture for your players.
Yeah.
And they will know exactly what the setting is. And it's still technically a map campaign.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you can kind of work anything you want into a map campaign. The map campaigns, you also have the advanced by area, which... GW has put out the Mighty Empires and Planetary Strikes sets, those hexagons, the plastic hexagons.
Yep.
It gives you a great feel, but it also gives, those kind of take and hold. Firestorm was one of those deals where you had a map and it showed who controlled it, but you could fight anywhere. Yeah. I could say today, hey, Josh, let's fight up in this region because I want to take it from you. Okay. And then the next game, we could be in the bottom corner of the map.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't... We're in the Mortal Realms. Armies can go anywhere easily. If you want to have it a little bit more grounded, you do these map campaigns where, okay, I've taken an area, now I can attack any of the adjacent areas.
Yep.
And then you keep spreading out. You have to kind of choose whether or not you want it to be free-for-all and high fantasy or, go by area and dial that fantasy down a little bit. When you dial it down, keep in mind that you are controlling what players can do. Yeah. And you can run into a situation where a player has a run of bad luck and has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And then you have to step in and do something. So anyway, and you could do non-map campaigns where you're just literally, and this is matrix campaigns, this is scoring campaigns where all that really matters is like a scoring campaign. We're just going to play book scenarios and we're going to tally up scores and we're going to use that to figure out how we play the next game and what that impacts and what you're able to do with those victory points you accrued. Maybe you can add more units. That's narrative. That right there is narrative. You can do tree campaigns. GW is really famous for doing tree campaigns.
Yeah, they are.
Where they literally have play this scenario. If you win, go to this scenario. If you lose, go to this scenario, which is really hard to manage with more than 2 people.
Oh, yeah.
But they seem to try hundreds of different ways to do it. They're also real big on those matrix campaigns where it's like, I want to be the attacker and you want to be a recon. So we cross-reference and bam, there's the scenario.
Yep.
Again, those are resources that you have available. You have to make that decision of what are you going to do? Are you going to base it on a map or are you going to base it on something a little more free-for-all, existential, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah, and then also, too, you need to look at how resource management is going to be run in the game. And so resource management, I mean, it can be any number of things. You can inject something in the game like, oh, well, if you win the battle, you get gold coins or something like that you can then use to purchase more troops or, to replenish troops or things like that. You're usually going to generally have resources in the map campaign, for example. It's territory right?
Yeah.
How does the territory work? So if you spread into these areas, are we going to be doing a quasi like Warcraft thing where we need to like establish bases and stuff like that in order to get additional resources to allow a certain number of troops to move through there? As I'm talking, you can see how that could just stretch and stretch and stretch. So you have to think, what's the resource management aspect of the game?
Yep.
Is it just victory points? Is it just following the path to glory stuff?
Right? I was going to say that's the biggest example of a resource management, and you can steal it really easily. GW wants you to use it.
Yes.
They've made it for you. You can use those rules. You can use a subsection of those rules for everyone. You know, make it apply to everyone. Pick a good one, not the Fire Slayers, because that one's great.
It's bonkers. Love it.
I mean, literally, they've done all the homework for you, and you can just expand on that. It's super easy. I like my coin system, you know, which just, it makes it easy to do both Anvil of Apotheosis as well as adding stuff to your army. You'll decide what you want to do. And again, go to wearetheneon.com and see what other people have done.
Yep.
Chances are, if it's up there, it was reasonably successful.
Correct.
So
this is something too where you have to consider your players and all that. Are they going to be able to have the capability to manage these kinds of resources? How much paperwork is involved, right?
Oh God.
You know, I was thinking too, I know this isn't AOS, right? But thinking too, like how Crusade currently works in 40K. Like the first game I played, I did a World Eaters list, and I had 2 units. I had my Demon Prince, who was my general, and I had 5 Red Butchers. The game took me 2 minutes to win. It took me 45 minutes of paperwork afterwards.
Yes.
Right? What kind of load are you... And it's not just resource management in terms of in the game, but, you know, like, well, I have to sit down. Time's a resource, right?
Yes.
I have to sit down. How long is it going to take me to figure out what just happened, what I can get out of it, what I lost? There's some downfalls to having a true sort of like a kind of RPG experience like that. Like if you're an accountant or, you know, some types of lawyers, you might be okay with it. Personally, it's sometimes taxing. So, you know, again, what type of resources are you managing?
And it goes back to, what do your players want? If you are in a group that does not mind crunching the numbers, you can have every kind of resource. Okay, you captured this much wood and this much ore and this much silver and this much gold. And I mean, you can literally have spreadsheets from hell. And these people can manage all that and build an outpost. And, you know, you can get crazy into the lore. GW has written some of this into the lore. I mean, it's crazy what you can steal from their books. And honestly, they are the #1 resource. You know, their books have given you every tool you'll ever need. But again, if your players just are the kind of people that want to rock up to a table, play a game, have an outcome, and then have something happen based on that outcome, don't have them manage 24 different resources, you know, including 14 different types of wood.
Yeah.
Only 3 of which can use to make weapons. No, don't do that. Don't do that. So, but I mean, if your players are into that, you know, go full bore civilization.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, that would be scary.
That's one of my wife's favorite games.
Cool.
Yeah. So again, time's a resource. Resources can be applied in game. Your mental capacity is a resource too. You know how much effort you have to put into all this. Growth and loss too is another thing you put down here. Does loss matter? If you lose troops, right? So you get, like, if you're using Path to Glory and you have the casualty rolls, like, oh crap, well, 3 of my, you know, 5 guys in that unit are gone now. Right? I only have the 2. It's an undersized unit, but I'm still rocking up at full points cost.
Yeah.
You know, so like, will that matter? Like, can you actually feel the undersized unit? If you do, like, all those consequences, can you pay to replace it?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a resource system, and LVO has that, when you take losses, you have to pay to replace them, and it eats into your ability to grow your army. So it makes it to where you don't always want to commit everything to get wiped out. Maybe not throw those 10 skinks into that son of Behemoth. You know?
Yeah, like the ways you would normally play in competitive, where you're like, well, I need to put this speed bump out there. If you're playing a narrative event, like, that speed bump may be gone permanently.
Yeah, and it might cost you to bring them back, and it might impact your ability to do other things. I know, Josh, you have this thing about narrative campaigns, you know, when we talk about loss and growth and what have you. Are you going to allow growth We have talked about this at length sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't let them start off with unique and named characters, and
Exactly.
especially gods. Marathi is not going to show up on day one, game one. Neither is Archeon. If that's what your campaign looks like, have people have to accrue a certain amount of resources or a certain amount of victory points to have access to that kind of a thing, to have a god character come out, or even to have a uniquely named character. You know, Vandus Hammerhand isn't everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
What's his name? The big Zinch guy.
Kairos Fateweaver.
Thank you, Kairos. You know, he's not, I mean, he is everywhere, but he's not everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, he
Certainly
is.
not physically everywhere.
God darn it, he is. Oh, I hate that guy.
He's never in the present, that's for sure.
That's a good point.
So
Whew, save my bacon. Thanks, Josh.
I've been known. That kind of stuff is, I think that can really inspire your players to have a goal. It's not just, oh man, I can't play with my Marathi. No. If you do well enough,
Yes.
here's this outside game mechanic I've introduced, right? Or maybe you just gain enough VPs. Marathi will recognize you and will join you for the next battle after you hit that threshold.
Right.
Right? Archeon will join you after you brought enough glory to him, or he thinks that, like, you know what, this guy might be okay. Maybe it's even an inverse thing too. It could be really funny, like particularly for Nagash is what I'm thinking. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you're a Death Army and you just keep losing, and Nagash is just like, oh no.
I am taking over.
Right. And then it's a question of, do you let them control the god?
Or
does
do
the
you-
god come with NPC?
Yeah, do you limit that control a little
Yeah.
bit? And if you're doing something like LVO or Nova, which are the two I'm very familiar with, you can bring these characters right from the beginning. And the flat out reason is, you know, as I've said before, LVO might be that person, that player's 1 week a year to go out and get away and do some AOS that they don't always get to do. And so you let them do whatever they want. But if you're having an ongoing campaign, let them grow into things. Maybe think about how you're going to have a growth or a loss mechanic.
Yeah.
The problem with a loss mechanic, I still think you should have it. You shouldn't have every game being YOLO in a narrative campaign.
Oh yeah.
And I got tabled, but I won. Yeah. Okay. No, you didn't. You have to be careful in how punitive the losses are to replace. You could quite literally have look at Daughters of Cain, look at Seraphon that have very cheap battle line units that are designed to be expended.
Yeah.
They are designed to do what they do and die doing it. Don't penalize those players for playing badly because they're doing what they should.
Yeah.
So you don't want your replacement mechanic to be something that is so punitive that, yeah, they can replace their losses, but they can't gain anything, while maybe the guy who lost the fight with them actually made out better than they did. So you want to be careful with how you work that mechanic and think about all those things as you're developing the concept of your campaign and the hook. What's going to cause people to come back if they get real upset because they can't keep up. Well, now you have a dissatisfied player, someone who's not going to be really interested in coming back. So
Yeah, agreed. And there were certain ways to balance things too. You know, it's like those cheap throwaway units like skinks. I mean, like narratively, lore speaking, right? They're literally dreamt into existence.
Yeah.
What are the resources? The frog over there goes, huh? And then they're there, right?
exactly.
Whereas like the witch elves, like, well, I mean, they're not just infinite. They're not born of dreams. They're not just plucked out of the ground like, Sylvaneth are. They have, limited numbers. What's going to take to get them back? Does that affect how it is? Or like, I'm thinking of hefty units like Annihilators, big beefy boys, right? You're not just going to be able to like, oh, that was cool. Here, let me get another one.
Yeah, they don't fall off trees. It takes a while to reforge all the Stormcast. So use that. Use the hooks that are already there for you. And you could have a thing at the very outset that said, hey, listen, when a unit is wiped out, it is literally just out of action. It's not killed. They're not dead. They're just too badly hurt to go on.
Yeah.
And that can be your mechanic, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Or you can get a little more granular and say, hey, once you've, done this, you can roll on this table to see how many of each unit you can bring back. Or you can just use the Path to Glory system.
Yep.
The casualty point system is actually quite a good mechanic.
Yeah, it doesn't ever feel punitive, right? I mean, it's generally fairly balanced.
Yep.
So, You're never really going to go wrong with it.
And again, steal from GW. They have put, you might say that they don't really, but they put a lot of thought into these things. The reason why the Daughters of Cain Path to Glory is kind of meh is because Daughters of Cain are really good on the table.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be bumped up at any skill level. Fire Slayers, on the other hand, have a bonkers Path to Glory because honestly, in a Path to Glory campaign, it can go very ugly for an inexperienced Fire Slayers player.
Yeah.
You can lose very, very easily. On the flip side, if you're a very good player, you should be rewarded.
Yeah.
And so, that's why they didn't make the system too punitive.
Yeah.
And again, I would caution you against making it punitive because it's going to impact the player's desire to be back.
Yeah.
And that topic will come up again. Don't worry.
The other thing too, if you're going to allow for growth, right, in the game, how does that growth operate? I mean, I think, again, Path to Glory as written currently is a pretty decent system for that. Yeah. This is how you grow. This is how you use VPs to get additional things, right?
Yep.
I think it's great, but are you going to cap growth? Oh, you can go no more than 1,500 points now. Or, yeah, I know that you got 3,000 points in the stable, but you can only bring 1,750.
Right.
Right? Are there going to be certain caps to the growth? I think that generally speaking, there should be, in a long-term thing, over a course of weeks, should be a slow grow like that.
Yep.
Like, all right, we're starting out at 500 points. You get your 2 games in for the week or something.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to go up to 750. You should have enough VPs to fill that stuff up. So there's a way to progress those things. And I think that growth is good because, if you're combining it with like a hobbying thing, then you're able to keep building and painting models. And, oh, man, I just painted up these salamanders for next week. I can't wait to bring them,
Yeah.
Do it. I think it's great.
And, one of the ones I saw that was really kind of a neat system, and I forgot what one it was. Oh, God, I want to say it was one of the slaughters, but I'm not sure. But one of them had this great mechanic to bring one of the god characters. The player had to sacrifice units. And it was great because they started with a 2,000-point army. And now you want to add Nagash. Well, obviously that doesn't work. So in the pack, it was written that you had to sacrifice a battle line and a hero. Oh, one of the heroes that counted as a warlord, so a 10+ hero, and just all this other stuff to be able to bring in Nagash. And they had it all figured out for Alariel, for Archeon, for all the really big. I'd like to see the one for Kragnos. I don't think it was out there. You make that an impactful choice for the player.
Yeah, definitely.
And you also sort of reel in the balance a little bit by doing that too.
Yeah.
So you're obviously only going to play a 2,000-point game, but if you get to pick and choose those 2,000 points, you can put together some really nasty lists. Whereas if you make them give up one of every type of unit to get Alariel, now all of a sudden we get back to reality or some version thereof. This is fantasy.
The reality of this fantasy.
Now, the other thing that you're going to have to, and this is a hard one to hit, when you're conceptualizing your game and kind of deciding how it's going to be. Now, I have it listed on the outline as the problem player response, but it's not just that. You need to have a runaway mechanic in place. And that's for 2 things. You're going to have a player that either groks the campaign right away and manages to do all the right things and gets way ahead.
Yeah.
And whether it be resources or victory points or gold, whatever your mechanic is, they get way ahead. And the other players are like, well, we either all gang up to take him down. But if your system doesn't account for that and doesn't allow it, well, that guy just continues to run away. Or you could have, the campaign like Ulf was talking about, where he tried to get this problem player out of his league. And the store owner said, oh, hell no. This is open for anybody to play in. And the guy basically ruined it by bringing these smash mouth competitive lists.
Yeah.
Saying it was my narrative, basically made it to where everybody just sort of dropped out.
Yep.
We're kind of having something like that in our local MCP league.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Where, there's a serious lack of people in the league this time because they just don't want to meet certain people because they're just there to win the prize.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're just going to play the net list. And you have to have something in your system. And honestly, in order to make it fair, it can't be hidden. It has to be out there.
Yeah.
You have to have a mechanic that says if a player reaches a certain plateau, they have to take a week off so that everybody else can catch up. Mm-hmm. Or if you reach this certain level, something bad happens. A god notices you and wipes out 2/3 of your units. And now you're kind of back in the realm of the other players. But have something in your pocket. Nothing is worse than a narrative campaign where either by design or by, one player just literally starts getting to the point to where they're unassailable.
Yeah.
And then everyone else loses interest because there's no winning in narrative, but players want to feel like they have the ability to take that person on an reasonably even footing. So, put in there that, hey, if a certain person reaches this certain victory level, the next game they play is a 2v1.
Yeah.
And take them down a peg. The other thing to do is if you yourself are a really good player, and I can never do this, have a ringer army that is, one thing I always love to see is the mirror match.
Yeah.
Literally the guy brings a beat face. Oh my God, I have this many dragons and you don't. So you play the mirror match with him. And, if you're a good player, maybe you can take him down a peg. Mm-hmm. So, but just keep it in mind that you have to have something to handle the runaway situation. It may be on purpose. It might be that guy, or it simply might be a flaw in your rules that you didn't anticipate. And you have to have a way to reel it in.
You really do. I mean, because that's a negative play experience, right? To have this guy come in when we have people who are really dedicated just having fun with the narrative. And it's, oh, by the way, it's week 2. I've got Marathi.
Yeah.
I've got 10 bow snakes.
Yeah.
I've got 10, melee snakes, right? This isn't a narrative anymore. You're literally just trying to get to a competitive list because you're just trying to win hard, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make it fun. It doesn't make it entertaining.
No.
And people aren't going to want to get involved. The point is to continue in the hobby, have people enjoy it in the community and want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So if you have that problem player, build in your fail safes, right?
And it could be as simple as talk to the person.
Yes.
And say, hey, can you drop this unit? Because really people are not having fun.
Yeah.
And, the person, whoever it is, might just look around and go, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. I didn't. Okay, yeah, you're right. That was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. I'll take that unit out. So, and, maybe give them something in response, but, just have something up your sleeve. Now that you've kind of conceptualized your campaign, you know how big it's going to be, you know where it's going to be, you know what the flow is going to be like. You kind of have a good idea of how you're going to pull it off, what resources you have, how the players are going to interact with the world. And you've got it all drafted up and you're ready. Your masterpiece is complete and you're ready to unleash it on your players. This is when you have to take a step back, print it out, put it in the drawer for a couple of days, and come back to it later and get ready to kill your baby. You have to pare away everything that does not feed that number one question of what's my hook?
Yep.
What keeps people coming back? And I have this amazing mechanic for doing losses. If it doesn't hit with the players, then it's of no value to your campaign. Mm-hmm. And honestly, depending on the size of your event,
yeah,
you can give everybody a copy of the pack, the rules, if you will, as you wrote them. English are hard.
English
are hard. Send it out there. Let people look at it and give you their feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And you might get 10 people come back and say, oh, it's really good, except for this. And if 10 people tell you that that's bad, take it out.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not something they want to do.
Exactly.
Be ready to kill your baby if you have to. The next big thing is don't reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
Dear God, GW has put out so many campaign systems, be it in White Dwarfs, be it in the Firestorm box. I have looked at that Urban Conquest set 100 times and looked at how to turn that into an AOS campaign. And it's super easy.
Yeah.
You literally need some card sleeves, something to glue them to, and then cool little cards that you put in that represents the terrain.
Yep.
and all of a sudden you're on your way. Let them do all the hard work for you. Go to TC Repo, go to We Are the Neon, grab some of these packs and pick and choose the stuff you like.
Yeah.
It's super easy. Don't forget Anvil of Apotheosis is out there.
Oh,
I
God,
know.
it's so important.
Yeah, Nova used it. I'm using it. It is such a great way to allow people to hobby and build their own cool character, well as
best part.
Yeah, and then you upgrade it as the time goes by in the campaign, and it's something fun. And a lot of players will develop the narrative right around that guy.
Oh yeah,
and all of a sudden they're doing all the work for you. Let them do it. But the biggest thing is be ready to strip things out.
Yes.
Of your concept of your campaign, and be ready to just take the bullet. I know you worked really hard on this set of rules and it's really, really cool. But if your players aren't going to enjoy it, if they're not going to think the same way, if they're not of the same mindset as you, your campaign's going to go nowhere.
Yeah. 100%. Like you were talking earlier about, those folks like to get together and do the spreadsheets with the 3 different kinds of wood, that you need for weapons, but there's only 18 types of wood. And so, if you mix them together, am I going to get the right firewood? Right? Not everyone is like a cleric from D&D 3.5. Like we're not here to do paperwork all day. It's already a niche hobby.
Yes.
And that is like a niche within a niche.
Yes.
Which you're going to find the dudes who are just like, dude, I just want to crunch numbers all day and maybe put models on the table at some point.
Yeah.
And that's fine, right? Generally, not going to be the group that you're going to be working with, right? So strip it back down.
Pull it back.
I don't have time to really deal with this whole like gold coin situation. I really like what Bill's doing, but I think I'm just going to have to stick with VPs. That's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
That's fine.
And the thing is strip it down to its bare bones. And then the next time you run it, maybe you add that mechanic in and see if players like it.
Yep.
And then add something else. And then let it evolve as the players direct you as to what they want. And then all of a sudden you have a campaign that everyone's bought into. And they think it's the most fun thing they've ever done. Now you're a winner. Don't be a loser.
And this is something I think will come up a little bit later, but you have to realize that you're not likely to run the perfect campaign from go, right? And so while you're trying to do all this and try and mitigate it and conceptualizing it, killing your babies after doing all this thought process, right? Don't be afraid to fail.
Yep.
That's going to happen. And so then you can be like, okay, so I learned from this last campaign. Let me reconceptualize this. So that way I learn from my past mistakes and I can apply it now.
Yep.
Here.
And as you get your players to more and more buy in, it just starts to take a life of its own.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But I think we should end that there.
I agree.
Because that is truly how you would conceptualize. Now, in future episodes, we are going to start diving deeper into these different areas and kind of look really hard at how is that going to play into it? How is the setting going to work? How is all of these other mechanics that you've made, how are they going to work? How are they going to fit together? And then we're going to talk about a lot about resources and where are you going to get them? And when we do that show, we are going to name hundreds of resources and probably miss thousands.
Yep.
We're only 2 people, so give us a break. Damn it. But also we're going to cover executing it. How are you actually going to start doing it? How do you put it all together and get players into it? So there's so much stuff we've got coming up. This was only the first step, and please let us know what you think we missed, what kind of mechanics or concept you think should also be taken into account. What do you think we put too much emphasis on? As I said before, this series of shows is going to become a long article for We Are the Neon.
Yeah.
So the more feedback we get, the better off that is, and the better a resource it is for other people a year from now. So any other final thoughts?
I'm really excited. This is just the start of the journey. It's sort of the concept of the journey. We figured out the size. Now it's the concept. And we're going through this narrative process with you. And it's truly a creative process. It's something that involves, it's not like something where I just execute it in terms of this is the exact strategy tactic. Yeah. This is a calculated, exact thing that I do. Because when it's narrative, it is by necessity creative. It operates in a creative space, a conceptual space, if you will. And And so as you're able to develop concepts, it's going to expand your view of the game itself and how it works and how it operates and what in it is fun.
Yep.
I have fun myself playing beat face lists sometimes and just going hard with another person who's like just trying to do the same thing, right?
Yes.
That can be very fun because it's a nice battle. It's good. There are times I want to dial it back and be like, I don't use this unit that much because it's generally in terms of competitive play not that good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'd be fun to have a bit of a story behind this. The Anvil Apotheosis is so fun for those reasons too. There's a lot there, and this is just the beginning. This is us sort of showing you the canvas upon which you can paint.
Yes.
Right? I hope you stick with us through this whole thing and give us all the feedback that you can. I'm not afraid to fail or kill my babies.
Nope.
Even though I never had babies.
Yeah, thank
But,
God.
if I did, whew.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely, it's not just, me and Bill doing this. This is not just you listening. It's all of us in this together. It's our show. Right?
Narrative always has to be a collaborative effort.
Exactly.
It's if you try to do it all by yourself, chances are you'll be playing all by yourself.
Yeah.
So
thanks for listening in. I can't wait for the next parts to come up and, really develop this evolving dialogue on narrative gameplay and how it might be the most fun version of Warhammer.
he's just jazzed because we're going to use so much Necromunda stuff. All right, stay tuned for After Dark. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can reach us at our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/rollingbadpodcast, all one word. Our Patreon page is at www.patreon.com/rollingbadpodcast, again, all one word. The Twitter account for the show is at rolling_bad. Our individual Twitters are, for me, at Bill Castello, BILLCASTELLO. And for Josh, you can reach him at Anoyo, ANOYOE. All the guests on the show will have their contact information in that show's show notes. The music in the show is used courtesy of Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com and is used under the Creative Commons license. The Rolling Bad podcast itself is protected under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. Information for this license can be found at creativecommons.org.